Oh my god, let me tell you, man, this will probably either break or make Midnight and World of Warcraft for a lot of people. We're here to talk about add-ons. So Wowhead just tweeted this out a couple moments ago. Blizzard confirmed that combat add-ons will be disabled in endgame content in Midnight and have implied this may have happened as early as the Midnight pre-patch. Now, I will link this in the description below. The conversation starts around roughly about 26 minutes for add-ons. The TLDR is they pretty much want to make sure that you don't need to have a million add-ons to play the game, and the difficulty should stay relatively the same. Whether that is removing an additional ad you need to encounter, maybe giving you a couple extra moments to figure out what's going on, so you don't have to hear bah, 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 like in your headphones over and over again. So that's pretty okay. I guess we just need to see about the implementation. But there's a couple things I wanted to talk about with this, and as someone who is a new WoW player, I've been trying to play the game without add-ons, and it's a little rough. But so, uh, going to Wowhead right here, we have combat add-ons disabled in endgame content. So the table of contents, I'm going to move myself up over here. In a group interview, game director Ion and UX designer Crash Reed, oh wait, hold on, I gotta scoop myself over. Bam, confirmed that combat add-ons will be disabled in the endgame content at midnight, and implied this may happen as early as midnight pre-patch. So combat add-ons disabled in endgame. Any combat-related things will not be available moving forward with Midnight for add-ons. This seems to be happening a lot earlier than people expected, with even the first tier of Midnight not having any combat add-ons. So is Weak Auras being canned entirely? And so now if you don't know, Weak Auras is a very, very popular WoW add-on that I actually don't even use, because I'm trying to learn the game without this, because I know it's not going to happen and I want to be raid ready and stuff, but I can't rely on this. Weak Auras pretty much tells you everything and is a massive assistance for people. So no, absolutely not. I just want to super clarify there. A lot of the shorthand here have been like, oh, Blizzard's killing Weak Auras. Oh, I don't know what just happened there. That is not what we're doing. We're going to have a technical, okay, we're going to have a technical blog rolling out for add-on authors in the next day or two that lays out the system we have in place, but it's really focused specifically on reading combat events and combat state, whereas in the past, when we disabled, like we wanted to break add-ons or limit what add-ons could do. For those of you who are familiar with how add-ons work, there was a system called Taint, basically where a portion of the UI could be protected and add-ons weren't allowed to manipulate it in combat, and if they tried to, it just kind of broke the UI. It's a very heavy-handed approach. We didn't want to take such a heavy-handed approach because we want to preserve the aesthetic customization, that core functionality of what people have been used to for the past 20 years. The new system that our UI engineers have come up with is what we're calling secret values, where basically the UI still works as before, except that when there is a buff on you or a damage event that is happening in combat, those items are inside a black box. The UI and add-ons can know the black box exists. They can display information. This website's annoying. They can display information about it in a larger way, smaller way. They can make it pink if they want, whatever you prefer. But what they can't do is know definitively what's inside the box and run any kind of logic based on it. Again, the goal specifically is to just restrict the problem solving real-time computation that's used to aid moment-to-moment combat. So pretty much, you have that black box, and you will be able to see the debuffs, the buffs, whatever the case may be, but these add-ons will not be able to give you what your next step is. I have an add-on currently right now where it tells me my rotation, right? It's not going to tell you that. And I don't know, man. Like, look, I'm new to the game, but I've heard not many great things about Blizzard before, so I'm hoping in which that this is effective and really does work. However, I don't know. I could sit here in confidence. I tell you, I think this will save the game. And I will say, if you sit down and watch a World of Warcraft video, whether it's PvE, PvP especially, it is very hard to tell what's going on, right? I mean, there's so many things. There's so many different parts of rotations, so many add-ons people use to see other people's cooldowns and whatnot. So it is very overwhelming. I just don't know a game that has so much depth and complexity to the building, and honestly, how the content works, how they can really narrow this down to just a black box. But, you know, it is what it is. So we go on. Mana Forge Omega nerfs and pre-patch. In a question about removing boss mods tool, Ion referenced nerfing Mana Forge encounters that players will be engaging with in pre-patch. In terms of existing encounters, we're going to be doing a pass on Mana-Forge encounters, for example, that people will be engaged in pre-patch. The pass hasn't been done in alpha yet. Yo, I don't know why it's doing this. But before things go live, those will be tuned and tweaked, in some cases, meaningful changes to make sure that there's still fair and appropriate level of challenge. And they develop on this and really hone in on this in this live stream and explain that they want to keep that level of challenge, but they want to make the game way more accessible. Again, I'll link this below with this timestamp, but I don't know, brother. I don't know, man. You know, this seems to imply that the combat add-on purge might occur even earlier than midnight, which we're kind of really know. And so, given the upcoming removal of many boss mod tools, how are we planning to preserve the intended difficulty of encounters, and how are players expected to be able to adapt? Which I think is a very fair question, because a lot of people really rely on those add-ons. In terms of existing encounters, we're going to be doing a pass on Mana-Forge encounters, for example, that people will be able to gauge with pre-patch. The patch hasn't been done in alpha yet, but before things go live... Oh, I was like, wait a second. Okay. This is the same part of the paragraph. I was like confused. Broadly speaking, though, I think the intent here is not making raiding harder or Mythic Plus harder. It's more about leveling the playing field and focusing some of the decision-making, some of the challenge on coordination, and sharing the responsibility with guildmates, with your teammates, as opposed to offloading it to an add-on that some people may have and others may not. So whether that takes it from giving you a couple extra seconds to get in position before something blows up, whether it takes the form of having one or two fewer adds, mechanics, fewer than we might have in the past, our goal is to hit the same general difficulty target. If you're a guild that gets cutting edge or is in the Hall of Fame or is aiming for ahead of the curve, and you typically achieve that X weeks into the season, our intent is that in midnight, your guild is typically achieving roughly the same amount of time into the season with the same amount of time and progression involved. It's just that it will be a product of your own coordination, your own problem solving, and not spending 30 minutes configuring a weak aura before you pull a boss for the first time so that everyone knows where to run to star or circle. Again, I don't know, man. The delivery on this, I feel like the difficulty is probably going to go up, but the difficulty is going to spike because of the fact that people don't have these add-ons that they're really accustomed to. So I guess we'll see. And then one of the other big ones here is debuffing and external tracking. Announces some large changes to debuff and external tracking coming in midnight. External tracking is a brand new feature as a part of the edit mode that will allow you to track things. Yo, this ad is going to make me crash out. Like Iron Bark for your team. We're talking about blocking access to combat information for midnight regarding add-ons. Does that include debuffs on a target, track, corruption, for example, or even personal resources? Current cooldown manager doesn't allow for that. So is that plan? And then yes. With these add-ons, any combat-related things will not be available moving forward with Midnight for add-ons. So with our cooldown manager currently, it doesn't support that, but with Midnight, we'll be adding debuffing states for your selected target. So you'll be able to visibly see and better understand how these debuffs are behaving on their various targets. We're also introducing, it's not necessarily a part of the cooldown manager, but it will be accessed through edit mode as something you could turn on. We're calling it active external defensive. So that is something that will also allow you to track something like Iron Bark for your other team members, and that exists outside of the cooldown manager. We chose to do that so you could move those things independently from each other, and you don't need to do the management levels that cooldown manager has for something like those external defensives. On top of those types of things, we're also adding in things like sound alerts. Bah, bah. Them adding sound alerts I didn't know about, so I just read this. That I'm cool with, so I'm down with that. So be able to choose your sounds and assign sounds to events like on cooldown, off cooldown, within your cooldown manager to help you bring alert up. They'll even be going as far as well as adding in a text-to-speech option so that you'll be able to have to spell read out instead of just hearing an abstract sound. Oh, okay. Wait a second. Hold up. Hey, that's not that bad. Again, we'll have to see how the implementation is. I really think a lot of people might quit from this, to just be very honest. I mean, people I think are product of old habits, and realistically speaking, I don't know many new World of Warcraft players. This seems like a very intimidating game to play. I just have a severe case of mental illness. That's why I'm playing it. But anytime I try to get my people to play or my girlfriend to play, it's just like this is a little overwhelming to me. So not only is it going to be overwhelming because there's now a bunch of different changes, but now a lot of your add-ons are not going to be active there. And again, you know, things like adding a sound alert or text-to-speech I think is amazing. I think that's a great alternative. But how well is this going to be? I don't know. Then to comment on the part of your personal resources, we are touching on the personal resource bar. The big push right here is to make it no longer a floating nameplate. In all the previous iterations of it, it was a floating nameplate that existed in the world as opposed to part of the HUD, which means it could fall behind other UI elements depending on where your camera was. So the work that's going in right now will be updating that so it'll actually be a part of the HUD that then you can move around through edit mode and change and rescale. So yeah, it pretty much seems right now that they're going in on this no add-on stuff, right? No exceptions here. I don't know, man. I don't know. People on Twitter, it's a little bit of a mixed response. If I refresh this page, let me tell you, you know, we got as a healer, I can't wait to not know if my DPS or tank have defensives for certain mechanics, and Mythic Plus is funny. Let's talk. Let's taking a thriving and optimal decentralized environment proven to work for 20 years and centralize it to a handful of people that have to cut through layers of bureaucratic tape to get anything done, be it initiative, work, or detect redemption. Huge L. The amount of people who just don't understand why Blizzard would do this is hilarious to me. This would be healthy for the game in the long run. Again, biggest W in the game. I would love for this to be the biggest W, and this will probably help maybe bring in new players, but at the end of the day, the game is very overwhelming as a new person. Coming from my experience, again, I love that, but I just don't know if the add-on stuff is enough to really help. I guess we'll have to see what happens. Maybe we'll see a showcase soon, but yeah, they're doing it. They're just 100% getting rid of it. So with that being said, let me know what you think. I love you. Mwah. I'll see you in the next one.